big-time performances in the association last night, in particular out west. Starting with the reigning MVP, who played like it once again. SGA breaking Wilt Chamberlain's record with his 127th straight 20-point game. He finished with 35 and 2 go-ahead buckets in the Tatumless against the Tatumless Celtics. In San Antonio, the Nuggets got a much-needed road win against the Spurs, who were without Wembanyama for the first time since January. Nikola Jokic had his league-leading 26 triple-double, and Jamal Murray added 39 points. And in L.A., Luka Doncic erupted for 51 points in a win over the Chicago Bulls. It was Luka's most points as a Laker. He is also the 5th Laker ever with 50 points, 10 boards, and 5 dimes in a game. We welcome back now Vince Goodwill and Brian Windhorst, and Joe Fortenbaugh is still here to break down what was a very crazy night in the NBA. But who had the best performances of all the ones that I just laid out? Joe, why don't you go first?
It's definitely not Luka, and that's going to sound like disrespect to Luka. This is not meant to disrespect Luka in any way. It is meant to disrespect the Chicago Bulls, who played no defense whatsoever. So we're going to throw that one out the window because SGA went against a good Boston defense and Jokic went up against a good San Antonio defense. I go with Jokic, and I'll make it brief. I hate the idea that 31, 20, and 12 has just become so normalized by him, we don't even bat an eye at it anymore. That's how fantastic he is. It was the second half of a back-to-back. He had to travel the night before to get in to play the Spurs. I'm going with Jokic.
Okay, Jokic. I heard the dig about the Bulls, and I'll take it, and it's fine. Vince, best performance last night was who?
I mean, I've been known for taking digs at the Bulls through the years, so I won't take any offense to it. But I actually do consider Luka's performance to be more eye-opening for me, and here's why. We've been waiting on Luka to figure out that this franchise is his. We've been waiting on Luka to truly establish himself with Austin Reeves there, with LeBron there. This thing is only going to work if Luka makes the decision that I can't defer to LeBron James anymore. And shooting more than 50% from three, hitting 9 threes, scoring 50, almost having a triple-double. I don't care if it's the Bulls. It's the fact that he scored 50 last night. It's also the fact that he's averaging 40 in his last 4 games. It feels like, as much as I'm not high on the Lakers, I am getting higher on Luka Doncic and his performances because he's starting to look like the player we expected him to be. Over the past week, we ain't been talking about Luka's out of shape, Luka's flopping, Luka's disappointing. Luka's been balling, and I think last night was just another example of why the expectations are so high for him individually and also for the Lakers collectively.
Wendy?
Shay, you and I should do that pinky swear thing. That I like that Luka celebration last night. You and I should do a hand like that.
Okay.
I will also give special mention last night to Matas Buzelis from the Bulls, second-year player, who got into a trash-talking match with Luka. And after the game, he said, I probably shouldn't do that. Which, the last thing you want to do with Luka in a game against a losing team on a Thursday night is to fire him up, and that's what happened. And he obviously was amazing last night shooting the basketball. But I have to give some attention to what happened in San Antonio. I as somebody, Vince and I did this for years, covering a team day to day, what it does to just us lowly media members who do not run clearly up and down the court and have to go on a back-to-back when you go from the Western time zone to the Central, or when you travel east. I don't think the Nuggets got into their hotel in San Antonio until after 3 a.m. On the second night of a back-to-back. They're down 20 points in the second half of that game. And what ends up happening is Jokic gets a foul called on him in the late part of the third quarter that he thinks is a BS foul. He implores his bench to review it. It doesn't get reviewed. And then he went on the warpath after that. The last 12, 14 minutes of the game, he was amazing. It was one of Jamal Murray's best games of the year. And even though Wembanyama didn't play in that game, considering how badly the Nuggets need every win right now and how they've been struggling and how they've been getting healthier, this was a really big performance. As a side note, Shay, I will just say it is interesting to me that Wembanyama has missed all 3 games against the Nuggets this year. He was ruled out with an ankle injury yesterday. I wonder if that actually could be a sort of a hidden advantage for the Spurs. Obviously, you get him and he plays much better. When your team's going to be better. But you don't give the Nuggets an opportunity to practice against playing against that defense with him in there. So that's something to keep an eye on if they face off in the postseason.
Vince, I see you. Go.
Wendy, are you suggesting some old-fashioned San Antonio chicanery? Is that Greg Popovich behind the curtain pulling the strings? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm sure the air conditioning was working just fine. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying it's interesting.
Wendy, one more time. Can you do the pinky celebration for me? If we're going to do it together, though.
Oh, yeah. We're going to do that.
Yeah, we got. But if we're going to do that, we got to be in person. So it's tough to do far away.
That's true.
The Thunder and the Spurs. We had no Wembanyama. Okay, fine. Yesterday, obviously, it was a very close game with the Thunder and the Celtics. How big is the gap between these two teams right now? Joe, go ahead.
Thunder and Celtics or Thunder and Spurs?
Spurs
Thunder
in the
and
West.
Spurs, not much. Not much at all. The standings are going to say, what, about 4 games right now? San Antonio may have lost last night. They've got a good track record against OKC this year, 3-1 with a win in their building as well. Since February 1st, the Spurs have been an absolute freight train. They're 16-2 straight up. They're 12-5-1 against the spread. They're number 1 in offensive rating. They're number 2 in defensive rating. Now, if we had all of that, but your matchups against OKC were problematic, then I might think to myself, all right, this is all great, patting it against the rest of the league, but you haven't handled your business against the Thunder. The fact that they have, I think it's very close. Very close.
Like, you think the Spurs could beat the Thunder potentially?
I think they could push them to the brink. Yeah, I think they could be right there. If you told me we see Spurs Thunder in a Game 7, not going to surprise me.
Okay. Vince, what do you think? How close is the gap between these two teams in the West?
It's getting a lot closer, guys. I did not expect that to be the case, not this year. I thought the Spurs' perimeter shooting was going to be something that held them back. This month, they're shooting 40% from 3. Last night, against that Denver team that is bereft of defense outside of Aaron Gordon, they took full advantage of that. And I think the recognition of knowing that they're going to get good shots. Remember, they did that without the gravity of Victor Wembanyama, which shows me that this team is learning to know itself outside of that particular identity. Yes, Denver was on the back-to-back. Yes, Aaron Gordon wasn't out there, but they had to still take advantage of that and push Denver to the brink. And it took a 30-20-10 game out of Nikola Jokic to coax out a win. Their perimeter shooting has coincided with how scary they've gotten throughout the course of this season. And remember, when they played the champs early on in the season, their perimeter shooting was not good at all, and yet they still beat them and beat them pretty well. So I think it's much more of a conversation between San Antonio and Oklahoma City than it is between San Antonio and Denver or San Antonio and Houston and San Antonio and Minnesota. They have matured very quickly throughout the course of this season. I don't know if they can beat them, but I'm sure that's a team that the champs do not want to play in the Western Conference Finals.
Wendy?
Yeah, so I would just say going forward, underestimating the Spurs is probably bad business because it's not just Victor. Victor is obviously a phenomenon, but the Spurs' young guards and their veteran, or more veteran guard, De'Aaron Fox, who is racking up good games. The Spurs' young guards are a real weapon against Oklahoma City. That's the heart of why they've had so much success heads up against them this year, is because they have that defensive perimeter that they can deploy. I have actually only been more and more impressed with the Thunder as this season's gone on. I realized they started off, and we were talking about whether they could win 70 games, but even as their losses have piled up a little bit because of their injuries, I've been so impressed with the back half of their rotation. Looking at how Isaiah Joe has handled tough situations, looking at how Jalen Williams, the big man, has had a couple of humongous games under duress, looking how Kendrick Williams has had huge moments when they've needed him. And that just reminds me of how hard it's going to be to beat the Thunder 4 out of 7 times. Overcoming that team when they have so many different ways that they can play is just going to be so difficult. And I believe they're going to get the 1 seed, and so I believe they're going to have home court. And so even though they've got a tough schedule coming in. And so San Antonio is a legitimate contender. They can absolutely do it, but I'm not quite there yet. And I admit that I'm violating my own rule of underestimating them, but it's more of an honor to what I've seen from the Thunder as they've gone through this title defense than anything. The one X factor that I have to point out, we have multiple soft tissue injuries to Jalen Williams, J-Dub, the wing, and Isaiah Hartenstein. Those two factors make you wonder about where those guys are going to be, because when you have multiple injuries to the calf, multiple injuries to the hamstring, you're walking on eggshells. So that, I wish it's not a satisfying thing when you ask who's better to say who's going to be healthier. But in this case, I think that might be a huge factor.
I'm glad you said that. It's an excellent point, because Williams has only played 26 games this year, and he was an integral part of what they did last season. If he can't stay healthy throughout the course of the playoffs, that's an issue. Number two, while some see San Antonio's playoff inexperience as a problem, and it most certainly is a concern, the fact that they're going to come into the playoffs fresh, no playoffs last year, when you've got a team like OKC who just pushed it into mid-June and went 7 against Indiana, you wonder what's in the gas tank for OKC. Not to say they're not properly conditioned, but there's a reason why it's so difficult to go back-to-back in the NBA. Before you can even start your vacation, training camps are opening for everybody else. That's the burden the champion wears.
Vince, final word.
I think I go back to the preseason. I go back to last summer when a lot of people were a little critical of Spurs GM Brian Wright. And they were saying you got way too many guards, you got too much positional duplication. And what they've created is a team full of versatile guys who can shoot good enough, who can handle it good enough, who can funnel guys into Victor Wembanyama, and also can feed Victor Wembanyama at the rim. It's about creating open opportunities during the playoffs. I'm with you, Joe, to some degree. I go to the school of you got to lose and lose big and get your heart broke before you win. Maybe that's going to change, but San Antonio is sort of speeding up their own timeline to this point. I don't think they expected to be this good. They expected to be better than they were last year. And the biggest thing for me, they're not afraid of walking into Paycom Center in a critical game and giving the Thunder a chance. I don't think they're going to beat the Thunder, but who's to say they can't?
Hey, the Spurs have beat the Thunder already 4 out of 5 times with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This is not when everyone was banged up. With SGA on the court, they've beat him 4 out of 5 times. Not afraid at all as this gap continues to close. I'm sure we'll have this conversation 100 different ways.
Probably the last time.
Maybe it's the last time. Coming up on First